Welcome to the Midas Touch Network. Ben Meiselas here, joined by Harry Littman, former top federal prosecutor, now the host of Talking Feds. And Harry's got one of my favorite YouTube channels, the Talking Feds YouTube channel, which is in partnership with the Midas Touch Network. So everybody, if you like the hot takes we do here, make sure you're subscribed. I know many of you are, to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. But Harry, it's great to have you here.
Hey, likewise. Good to be here, man.
Let's get into it with this federal defamation trial in New York. There were 3 days of trial in the E. Jean Carroll case against Donald Trump. Friday, the court was dark, but back in Monday, where Trump claims he's going to be testifying. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah,
I think we all had low expectations for Alina Habba, but I think she's exceeded my lowest expectations. I just want to get your take. I mean, federal prosecutor, you're practiced on lots of trials in federal court, so you seem not to even know the basics. So, like, what do you think about, one, her just ability, and then two, the strategy? Both seem horrible to me.
Yeah, I got to go with you here. And so, is it exceeding? Say mine were somewhat low, and she managed, I think, to dig underneath them. But look, so she's been made a kind of a laughing stock because she doesn't know some very basics, and Judge Kaplan has really kind of ripped her, several new ones, saying, here's what you do. And it is true that, like, and you would know this, Ben, impeaching someone with a previous statement from a document, that's really prosecutor or trial lawyer nursery school that you would have learned. So I think all that's true. She doesn't have the chops, but I think much more than that, she just doesn't have the judgment. He's the defendant in a case where it's already established, and the jury will be told the guy has committed a sexual assault and lied about it. That's not the kind of case where you want to try to rip the plaintiff to shreds when she testifies, and that was the centerpiece of the trial. Doesn't matter whether Trump testifies. I know we'll talk about it in a minute, but E. Jean Carroll's testimony is what everything's about in terms of the jury's judgment. And she just well, for one, she stumbled over her feet so many times that she never had a rhythm. So important on cross-examination to, like, boom, 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 leading questions, make with someone like that 20 good points and out. And she was continually kind of mired in her own mistakes. So there was no rhythm to it. But more than that, it was just a sort of scattershot. How can I make you look stupid? It's just not what you want to do with somebody like in E. Jean Carroll's case, who, again, the jury's going to be instructed that he assaulted her. So, one big moment they talked about, she sleeps, has to sleep now with a gun by her bed. She's scared. And so Habba said, well, do you have a license for that gun? And, Kaplan was like, come on, we are not going there. And he was, obviously, this is a guy who this federal trial practices in the Southern District. He knows good lawyering. He sees good lawyering. And he really, treated her like a remedial student, which she was.
What he had said, actually, for all of the, I think, criticism for what Joe Tacopina had to do outside of the courtroom to try to endear himself to Donald Trump, Tacopina is a former prosecutor, a good trial lawyer, and you heard Judge Kaplan actually praise Tacopina's trial lawyering skills. And even E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, would tell the jury, look, we know that this is a good lawyer, but you have to separate that aside. This is a whole different thing right now. How do you think that's impacting the jury, though? Because a lot of this is happening right before the jury, where the judge is saying things like, Ms. Habba, since you don't know how to admit evidence, we're going to have to take a break right now so you could refresh your memory about what you do in a federal trial. And then you've got these jurors here who know the weight of a case like this. I mean, they're constantly now being supervised by security. They're meeting in secret locations. So you would think that they come into this with these expectations that at the very least there's going to be some good lawyering. And then you have jurors seeing that Trump's lawyers don't even know the fundamentals. That has to have some impact on them as well.
Yeah, I think more than some. By the way, just on the jury point, this was an unusual trial. They all, maybe because it's very short, but they actually there weren't many people trying to get off this case. So yeah, they want to be there. It's a Manhattan jury, right? A pretty sophisticated one. But yeah, here's the thing. I do think she combines, ineptitude with charmlessness. So she's really not likable, and jurors focus on that. But even more, the judge is the big parent figure in the room. And when a judge in front of the jury gives that kind of withering critique, that's all they talk about in the next break. So he really, it's not simply that their own judgment. She sure seems to be unsteady on her feet, as well as a nasty person. But the thing that I think will really drive home for the jury is that the judge, the person who is their emissary and the person they look to, is basically saying, this lawyer can't get her way out of a paper bag. And yeah, so I think that really hurts. Now, how much does it do they, it's a kind of regular kind of water cooler discussion among prosecutors, because you'll often have she does seem to take the cake. You often have pretty bad defense lawyers on the other side. How much does a jury make the defendant pay? Now, of course, but Trump in his own has been totally of a piece. They're two peas in a pod. He's been, these stage whispers that are very obvious and very kind of low class in a courtroom. And the thing that just blew my mind. I don't know what it'll be like in the broader country, but you've been in court. They finished the testimony on Wednesday. It's time for the jury to leave, and Trump gets up and strides out of the courtroom. You never, ever, ever, everybody, the judge waits for the jury to rise and file out. And I guarantee you the jury noticed that. Everyone's paying them great respect, and this guy just, I can't be bothered to stand up for them and wait till they file out. So, they're of a piece. It does raise this question. Maybe she's the lawyer he wants because he's got the broader strategy, the perennial Trump question that I try to avoid, of sort of psychoanalyzing him and why he's doing what he's doing. But yeah, so she, with her own unpleasantness, bad. Trump, with his disrespect for everybody in the courtroom, bad. But maybe the baddest, the worst for Trump, is that the judge up there, the solemn parent figure, is totally making clear that she's an idiot, I think would be a fair word. And that's really got to embolden them to, go big on like punitive damages, I think.
And finally, Trump says that he's going to be testifying on Monday. I mean, he says that a lot of cases, and then goes to Scotland or disappears or whines or comes up with some reason why he's not going to show up. So I think that good money bets on the fact that he probably still doesn't take the stand. But I guess hope springs eternal from my perspective of wanting to simply see what's going to happen there when this is a case about damages only. Trump's already been adjudicated by a jury back in May to have raped E. Jean Carroll, though the technical words were sexual abuse, but Judge Kaplan's made clear that for all purposes and common language, that is, he was found to have raped her. So Donald Trump says he's going to testify. He's not going to stick to what he's allowed to talk about. What do you expect is going to happen? Assuming he does testify, Judge Kaplan, I mean, Judge Kaplan very well from a historical perspective of him and him being a no-nonsense judge. What do you think will happen? I mean, he's the kind of judge who would hold someone in contempt right there and not think twice to put someone in jail if they're violating court orders and what do you think happens?
Yeah, so I mean, he's been a pretty stunning contrast with Engoron. He's held him to a tight leash, and I think the reason has been that they set these ground rules in advance, so when Habba starts to say stuff, he can quickly slam it down. It's a very tough position because if you think about it, a mistrial, which is what a defendant would normally flirting with, plays into Trump's hands. Let me go first to, will he testify? And thanks for mentioning our YouTube channel. Those people who are listening now who watch it know that the axiom number one is Trump cannot testify in a criminal case. This is different. It's a civil case. If he doesn't testify, there's an adverse inference. Her lawyer, Robbie Kaplan, can actually argue to the jury if he didn't testify because he had things to hide. Even so, if he testifies, he's going to have to get put through a very well prepared ringer from Roberta Kaplan, a woman who knows how to lead him around. I think it'll be humiliating. So my best guess is he doesn't testify. If he does, though, we're going to have some drama because he, is it a psychological thing or a strategy thing? He just can't control himself. So he will again, the judge has already determined and will instruct the jury. The assault happened, the rape happened, the lies happened. They all happened. And so it makes it both irrelevant and prejudicial for him to be on the stand denying it or kind of backtracking. And yet, he'll do it 8 different ways. And the different kinds of, I do think you're right that Kaplan has the stones to really go for it and say, if you do this again, Mr. Trump, or dismiss the jury and, really wag his finger and do something that would work on anybody else. But since flirting with a mistrial is something that maybe he wants to do, and since maybe he's playing to a different and bigger audience and he's, ready to lose $100 million in punitive damages, which he'll just fundraise off of the next day. Tough situation for Kaplan. Anyway, bottom line is 1, I think he probably won't testify. 2, if he does, he'll break the rules right and left. And 3, Kaplan will slap him around and probably keep him, more or less on the reservation, but more or less. Trump will act up and get away with some shit anyway.
Yeah, Mr. Trump, after you were found liable for sexual abuse back in May of 2023, you went and did a CNN town hall, correct? Donald Trump will say, it was a fake, it was a motion to strike. It's a yes or no question. Well, it was.
And by the way, everyone listened to Ben, and that's not what Alina Habba did with E. Jean Carroll. It's a leading question that you make him say it. You know in advance that he has to, and if he doesn't, you're ready to impeach him, except she doesn't know how to. Yeah, that's what a good cross-examination is. You went to the CNN Hall, right? Yes. And there you said blah, 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 right? Yeah, And but I think your extemp performance here, your improv is got the right. Trump is going to say things again and again and again that are non-responsive and worse. And there'll be theater and fireworks, and will he ultimately shut him down? There are things he can do. I mean, he can strike his testimony, he can make him leave the stand, and all judges are a little scared that that'll give a kind of due process argument for Trump on appeal. But I think Kaplan is a guy who would be ready to take that heat on appeal. And I think judges on appeal, I clerked for appellate judges. They're pretty sympathetic if they see a guy like Trump. So if he does something pretty severe, he can't testify. That seems really severe, right? In this guy, but there are instances where you can, or he's got to go in another room, or if he does something, part of his strategy seemed to be, at least last week, to get the judge to really act up, like he jumped in and started talking without having agreed to the ground rules. And Engoron hung back. He didn't want to create an appellate issue. I think Kaplan would, if Trump is really defying him, he'd be ready to create an appellate issue to muzzle him or get him under control. It'll be really interesting if he testifies, which my best guess is he won't.
Harry Littman from Talking Feds. Everybody right now, go check out the Talking Feds YouTube account. It's in partnership with the Midas Touch Network. So if you like our legal hot takes here, if you watch Legal AF, if you like what Karen Friedman Agnifilo and Michael Popak and I are doing here, you're going to love the analysis at Talking Feds. Harry Littman does an incredible job posting updates each and every day. Make sure you subscribe now. We're going to put a link in the description as well. Harry, thank you so much for giving us your take.
Thanks, boss. Have a good one.
One day I can wish. One day I can wish.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers. Thanks to your support, and have a great one.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.